The message didn't say who the target was. It only said, access required. No questions. Payment guaranteed. I thought it was just another job. I was wrong. I'm not going to use my real name. On the forums, I was known as Cipher. For 3 years, I sold access. Not malware tutorials. Not scams. Access. And this is the confession that made me disappear. I wasn't a genius. I wasn't some prodigy typing in the dark since childhood. I learned by watching breaches happen in real time. Companies leaking databases. Employees reusing passwords. Admins ignoring warnings they didn't understand. Most systems weren't broken into. They were already open. Eventually, I found my niche. I didn't break systems. I found the doors that were already unlocked. Old credentials. Forgotten VPNs. Test environments nobody shut down. And on the dark web, that skill had value. There's a myth that the dark web is chaos. That it's just criminals screaming into the void. That's not true. It's organized. Structured. Almost professional. Reputation mattered. Escrow mattered. Silence mattered more than anything. I worked through an invite-only forum. No usernames, only hashes. No profile pictures, only transaction history. If you talked too much, you didn't last. If you asked questions, you didn't get work. That's where the message came in. It was short. No greeting. No small talk. Just a PGP block and one sentence. We need persistent access. 72 hours. 5 figures in crypto. That kind of money meant one thing. This wasn't curiosity. This wasn't someone poking around. This was intent. I had rules. Everyone did, even if they pretended they didn't. No hospitals. No infrastructure. No governments. Those jobs brought heat. They brought attention. And attention was death. But the message didn't say who the target was. And I didn't ask. That was my mistake. It took me less than an hour. An old VPN credential. No multi-factor authentication. Still active. Whoever owned the system had moved on and never looked back. When I logged in, my stomach dropped. Internal dashboards. Employee directories. Live system logs. Security camera feeds. This wasn't a startup. This wasn't a random company. This was a government contractor. The deeper I looked, the worse it got. Internal communications. Project names replaced with codes. Entire sections of the network segmented and hidden behind layers of access control. Then I saw the folder. Foreign requests. Inside were documents. PDFs, names, countries, dates, requests for access, surveillance data, metadata. Things that were never supposed to leave secure rooms. This wasn't hacking. This was intelligence trading. And I was standing in the middle of it. I told myself to log out. I told myself to walk away. But curiosity is dangerous, and fear makes you hesitate. That's when the second message arrived. Good work. We see everything now. Do not log out. That sentence changed everything, because I realized something then. They didn't need me to get in. They were already inside. They needed someone else connected to the breach. Someone to take the fall if things went wrong. They needed a ghost. I pulled the plug. Hard shutdown. Network cables out. Systems wiped. Wallets burned. Identities abandoned. I disappeared from every place that knew my name, even the fake ones. Within days, the forum vanished. Not shut down, not seized, just gone, like it had never existed. Within weeks, news started appearing. Investigations, arrests, national security leaks. No details, no names, just carefully written headlines. I don't know who paid me. I don't know who really owned that access. And I don't want to know. I don't sell access anymore. I don't browse those forums. I don't trust silence. Because on the dark web, silence doesn't mean safety. It means someone else is watching. The scariest part wasn't the hacking. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the risk. It was realizing that I was never the most dangerous person in the room. I thought disappearing would be enough. I was wrong. Once you've been inside those systems, once you've seen how quietly everything works, you realize something unsettling. Nobody rushes. Nobody panics. The most dangerous operations don't look dramatic at all. They look boring, routine, normal. Days passed, then weeks. I kept expecting something to happen. A knock on the door, a frozen account, a message I couldn't ignore. None of it came. That's when I understood how power actually works online. When you're useful, you're invisible. When you're expendable, You're visible for exactly as long as it takes to erase you. I replayed every step in my head. The login, the dashboards, the files I should never have opened. I didn't copy anything. I didn't sell anything. But I had seen enough to know that truth doesn't matter as much as proximity. On the dark web, guilt isn't about what you did. It's about what you were close to. I started reading the news differently. Not headlines, details. The wording. What was said, what was carefully not said. When officials spoke about unauthorized access and external actors, I listened for what they avoided naming. No one mentioned contractors. No one mentioned insiders. No one mentioned markets. They never do. People imagine hackers as lone figures typing through the night, chasing chaos. The reality is quieter. Most damage is done by people who already belong somewhere. People with badges, access cards, VPN accounts that never expire. I wasn't the threat. I was the smoke. That's why the payment never arrived. At first, I was angry, then relieved. Payment would have meant a trail. Payment would have meant acknowledgement. Silence meant I had been written out of the story entirely. That's worse than being hunted, but it's safer. I shut down everything. Machines wiped. Drives destroyed. Accounts abandoned mid-conversation. Some people call that paranoia. They don't understand how quickly context becomes evidence. Even now, I avoid patterns. Same cafes, same schedules, same devices. I don't reuse anything. Not passwords, not habits, not names. Especially not names. Sometimes I wonder who sent that message. Not the handle, the person behind it. Was it a broker? A state actor? Someone pretending to be both? On the dark web, roles blur fast. Criminals sound like officials. Officials use criminal infrastructure. Everyone hides behind the same tools. The scariest realization came later. Months later, when I accepted that nothing was coming for me. No consequences. No closure. That's when it hit me. If I mattered, something would have happened. The system didn't break because of me. It adjusted. It absorbed the risk and moved on. That's how you know you're dealing with something much larger than crime. I stopped telling myself I was different, that I had rules. Rules are comfort stories people tell themselves to sleep. Systems don't care about your lines. They only care about outcomes. I was a temporary variable, and when my part was done, I was removed. I don't miss it. The forums, the messages, the quiet adrenaline of being needed. What I miss is ignorance. The ability to believe that bad things look bad while they're happening. They don't. They look like paperwork. They look like dashboards. They look like folders with neutral names. If there's one thing I learned, it's this. The most dangerous operations never announce themselves. They don't threaten. They don't brag. They don't need to. They let people like me exist just long enough to take the risk for them. And then they disappear, just like I did. People like to ask why I'm telling this now. The truth is, I'm not sure I am. There are no names here. No dates. No locations. That's not caution. That's how memory works when survival depends on vagueness. I stopped thinking of myself as a hacker a long time ago. That word implies control, skill, intent. What I was, in the end, was a connector, a temporary bridge between systems that were already talking to each other in ways they were never meant to. Once you see that, the mythology falls apart. The dark web isn't a separate world. It's just a part of the internet where consequences lag behind actions. Sometimes by years, sometimes forever. I still get messages. Not directly, not like before. They come disguised as coincidences. A username that looks familiar. A phrase I've seen used only once, years ago. A silence where a reply should be. It's never explicit. It doesn't need to be. That's the real language down there. Implication. Every system leaks something. Not data, not credentials. Patterns. Human behavior. Fatigue. Overconfidence. The belief that someone else is watching the door. Most of the time, no one is. I used to believe exposure was the worst outcome. Being caught, being named, being displayed as an example. I don't believe that anymore. Exposure at least acknowledges you existed. What scares me now is erasure. Logs overwritten, forms gone, transactions scrubbed, people arrested for pieces of a puzzle that was never meant to be solved publicly. History rewritten in press releases that say nothing and everything at the same time. I sometimes think about the people on the other side of those files, the ones whose data moved quietly through systems they never knew existed. They'll never hear this story. They won't know how close their lives came to becoming footnotes in a document labeled something harmless. That's the most effective kind of secrecy, the kind that doesn't require lies. I don't tell this story to warn you away from the dark web. Curiosity always finds a way. Tools get easier. Access gets cheaper. The barrier to entry keeps dropping. What doesn't change is the asymmetry. You can see a fraction of what's happening, enough to feel informed, never enough to understand the full shape of it. By the time you realize what you're standing in, your role has already been assigned. I was lucky, or maybe I was simply irrelevant at the right moment. There's a difference. Luck implies chance. Relevance implies design. The systems that scare me don't chase people. They wait. They let incentives do the work. They let ambition and curiosity fill in the gaps. When something goes wrong, they don't react. They redistribute risk. That's what I was. Risk. When I disappeared, nothing collapsed. Nothing slowed down. That's how I know the story didn't end with me. It just moved past me. I don't know if the people behind that message ever think about me. I doubt it. You don't remember tools after you put them down. You remember outcomes. This confession isn't closure. It's residue. What's left when you remove everything identifiable and realize the outline still makes sense. If you're listening to this and thinking about the dark web as a place, you're already misunderstanding it. It's not a destination. It's a function. A mirror that shows you what the internet looks like without accountability, without context, without faces. And once you've seen that version, you don't unsee it. I didn't disappear because I was afraid of being caught. I disappeared because I understood something more unsettling. I was replaceable, and whatever needed me that night didn't need me for long.